Is there anyone anywhere who hasn't seen this tragedy replayed and replayed, both on television and in the mind's eye? The date, January 28, 1986. The tragedy, the explosion of the Shuttle Challenger with 7 astronauts on board, only 75 seconds after liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The first in-flight disaster in 56 manned U.S. space missions. The worst in the 25-year history of manned space flight. It caused immediate grounding of 3 shuttle orbiters. President Reagan vowed that space flights would go on, but the accident shook the foundations of U.S. space policy and plans. Today on Pacific Issues, the U.S. space program, looking to the future. We're fortunate to have with us today in the studio Steve Oswald, Annapolis graduate, military and civilian test pilot, astronaut, and former Bellingham resident. Mr. Oswald was possibly scheduled for a shuttle flight in 1988, but the Challenger disaster changed all that. Steve, tell us about that. You were there.
I was at Cape Kennedy for the launch of 51L, and witnessed the accident with the wives and children of the people on board, and it. Of course, it was a disaster that affected all of us in various ways. But those of us that knew the people on board and knew their families were probably affected more than anybody. It's certainly an event that I'll never forget. I don't think that anybody in this country who was watching at the time or who heard about it later will forget where they were when they heard about it. It's sort of on the order of maybe a Pearl Harbor or a Kennedy assassination type of event in magnitude, and I certainly hope we don't ever have to witness something like that again.
What are they looking for? You interviewed 3 times, and the 3rd time was the success.
Well, we kind of joke that what they're looking for is probably a 25-year-old who has a doctorate in physics and 400 carrier landings and 200 combat missions and 4,000 hours in airplanes. But, that'd be perfect for them. But they really have a broad spectrum in mind of the people that they're looking for. About half of the people in the office, and we have about 80 people in the astronaut office right now, about half of those, maybe 55%, are pilots, military test pilots. The remaining folks are mission specialist people, and their backgrounds vary widely from medical doctors to physicists, astrophysicists, geologists, engineers, and all of those kinds of people can contribute significantly to the many different areas that the space program encompasses.
I have some slides. Do we have time to take a look at a few of them right now?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, there we go.
This is a shot of a shuttle landing on the runway at Edwards. The T-38 in the background. I think this is from STS-4. It's the Shuttle Columbia, which was the first operational vehicle. The chase plane business we got out of after the 4th flight. We learned about all that we needed to learn in terms of photo chase. And here's an orbiter on the back of the 747. When we land in California, the way that we get it back to the Cape for the next launch is to transport it via the 747. Once we get there, we need to get the vehicle off of the 747. This is the facility, the mate-demate facility there on the left side of the screen, and in the background is the vehicle assembly building, and the orbiter processing facility is where the maintenance type work is done on the orbiter. Once we get it off the 747, we tow it down that towway. If we can get the next slide, there we go. The orbiter processing facilities are those 2 buildings in the foreground with the vehicle assembly building in the background. It was originally built for the Apollo program, and Saturn V vehicles were assembled there and then rolled out to the Apollo pads. Now we assemble the solid rocket boosters and the external tanks in the vehicle assembly building. This is a shot inside of one of the bays of the orbiter processing facility, and behind all that structure is a space shuttle orbiter being worked on. The OPF processing flow generally takes from 30 days to 6 months, depending on which flow of the vehicle it is. Shot of one of the solid rocket booster segments. The solid rocket booster motor comes in 4 segments, and it was a leak between the field joint separating the aft segment and the aft center segment that caused the Challenger disaster. The next slide shows the stacking of the orbiter on top of the external tank once the external tank and the solid rocket booster motors are mated together. The orbiter is lowered down onto the external tank, and then the next slide shows the stacked vehicle rolling out of the VAB on the mobile launch platform. This gives you an idea of the size of that building, because the orbiter itself is large enough that a Greyhound bus can fit comfortably in the payload bay. So it's a good-sized building. The vehicle rolls out to the pad on the mobile launch platform. Takes about 8 hours, about 4 miles or so out to the pad, about a half a mile an hour to get out there. And once we're on the pad, we continue a little bit more test and check out of the vehicle on the pad. Takes about anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months, depending on exactly what needs to be done to the vehicle on the pad. At the same time that the vehicle is being processed, the crew, of course, is in training. This is one of 26 T-38 machines that we have that we use to keep in proficiency to go fly the shuttle. Next slide shows the KC-135, which is a modified Boeing 707 that we use to simulate, well, to actually achieve zero gravity. And we can get up to 30 seconds of zero gravity in this machine. The next slide has the interior of the vehicle, showing an astronaut getting some zero-G training. Here's a picture of the shuttle training airplane, which we use to practice shuttle approaches. This airplane is highly modified so that we can pretty much exactly duplicate what the shuttle does from 35,000 feet on down to landing. The next slide shows an astronaut in extravehicular activity gear, basically a spacesuit, entering a water tank. Now, in that tank, we can achieve neutral buoyancy, which isn't exactly the same thing as zero-G, but it's about as close as we can come. The next slide shows an astronaut in the water with the safety divers helping him out. Prior to a complex EVA, the astronauts that are going to accomplish that EVA will spend hundreds of hours in the tank practicing what they're going to do on orbit. The next slide shows the shuttle mission simulator. We have 2 of these. One is a fixed base for practicing on orbit procedures. This one is a motion base, has 6 degrees of freedom, and is used to practice malfunctions and nominal procedures in ascent and entry. Next slide shows John Young on the left and Bob Crippen on the right in the shuttle mission simulator doing some work getting ready for the first shuttle flight back in April of '81. Next slide has a launch photograph. Real good picture of the solid rocket boosters. About 2.5 million pounds of thrust each on those, and the 3 main engines on the orbiter itself, which burn liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, generate about 500,000 pounds of thrust each. Whole stack at launch weighs around 4.5 million pounds. It's a beautiful sight. If you haven't seen a launch, I highly recommend it. Shuttle on orbit. Payload bay doors are open. The arm is deployed, and we're ready to go to work. Next slide shows an astronaut using the Manned Maneuvering Unit. The MMU is used to go out and get satellites. I think the next slide shows an astronaut going out, actually grabbing a hold of a satellite. We performed 4 satellite rescue missions here out of the 24 that we performed so far. Actually gone out and rendezvoused with satellites, brought them back to the vehicle, replaced boxes on them, and redeployed them and got them to be useful satellites, whereas before they were just basically drifting in space. The next slide is just a neat picture, I think, of the northern lights taken from space out the window of the shuttle.
From space.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture.
It's quite remarkable.
And the next slide shows the orbital maneuvering engines, which are used to change the altitude of the orbit and also to slow the vehicle down for re-entry. Very unusual picture. Next slide shows the vehicle. Once it's back down within the atmosphere, of course, it performs much like a normal airplane would. Its aero surfaces work much like that of a normal airplane. The only difference is that this machine doesn't have any engines that are functioning at this time.
You
So
have
it's
really basically no control over it then, or do
Oh,
you?
it's all under control, but there's only one shot at it. You can't ever get your altitude back. So you've got one approach at the runway, and so we practice it a lot so that it's a good one. This shows another touchdown. Touchdown is about 190 knots, which is considerably faster than that of your average airliner, say, and takes us around 2 miles to stop it. Future programs, we've got the Space Telescope coming up. It's currently manifested on, I think, the 6th mission to fly once we get going again. Other missions include, I think the next slide shows the Galileo space probe, which will go to Jupiter and tell us a lot about that planet that we haven't been able to learn before. Also, another mission is the Ulysses solar polar mission, which will go out and orbit around the sun in the polar plane rather than in the ecliptic. Also, hopefully we'll be, depending on funding and various other kinds of problems that we have with the space station, we'll be deploying the space station in the mid-1990s. This particular configuration is the dual keel configuration, which was what we were hoping to do prior to being told that we had to do it with a little less money than we had originally anticipated. So what we actually end up flying is going to be something a little bit less in capability than this, but capable of being modified and built upon as time goes on.
What about congressional support?
I think that the majority of the American people support the space program and would encourage us to continue or maybe accelerate the pace at which we're achieving things. Right now, obviously, we're pretty much at a standstill, but I think with as much public support as there seems to be for the program, that Congress can't help but give us what we need to do to get the job done.
Do you have apprehensions?
Sure, I have apprehensions when I get in a car, but I think that there's a certain amount of risk involved with every activity that you undertake, and the trick is to do your homework and to try to minimize those risks. And I think that having spent a couple of years working for NASA and knowing the people that are doing the job there, that if any group of people can minimize those risks, I think that NASA can probably do that.
Well, on that positive note, we'll go to a break and be right back with Steve Oswald.
When Sunbury Cedar says direct from the mill to you, they mean direct from their mill on the Fraser River. So Sunbury can offer the finest quality cedar products at remarkably low prices. Sunbury Cedar garden sheds are pre-cut and easy to assemble. Surround your solid cedar lawn furniture with a matching Sunbury Cedar fence, the Prestige, the Container, or the Good Neighbor. All products are made from 100% Western red cedar and Alaskan yellow cedar, direct from the mill to you. Sunbury Cedar, near the Alex Fraser Bridge on River Road in sunny Delta.
Jack Niemann's newest Black Forest, alive and delicious with all the flavors of Bavaria. Drop in anytime. Enjoy the pretzel bar or the patio or the authentic dining room. The food is fabulous at prices you haven't seen in years.
Eins, zwei, Sofa!
Jack Niemann's newest Black Forest, where everyone smiles in the same language.
Zwei, Sofa!
We've been speaking today with Steve Oswald, astronaut and Bellingham resident, former Bellingham resident. Thank you so much for being with us today, Steve.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Join us again next week for Pacific Issues.